for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but I've been in the fire service since 2003 and full time since 2008. So I got a pretty good feeling of the people I work with and how I view things. And the 4 parts of Devote December, we're talking about nutrition and exercise and then mindfulness. And mindfulness is something that is completely voluntary. And for most people, it's very abstract and very not woo-woo out there. It's a dedicated system and a dedicated practice, but it's just not a large part in the fire service. I mean, we're just getting yoga to be more accepted in the fire service. It's a very slow-moving train. What I'd like to do with these next couple of questions is close that gap a little bit from myself being very, very surface knowledge aware of it, and basically your universe where you live and what you think is extremely valuable to first responders. And so in your intro in the course, you give a very smart breakdown of who you are, what the course is about, and then you talked about a contraindication of the course being someone in a crisis state. And that really resonated with me because you go on there and say, listen, I'm not qualified at this level. I'm not qualified at this thing. I am exactly this, and this is how this course can assist you in your life. If you're in a crisis state, this course may not be for you. You need to find help in these areas. And I really wanted to get in that because I can say that day to day, I feel like I'm either in a crisis state or not, especially in the past month or so. Was that more of like a month-long progression or a clinical kind of designation of being in a crisis state? So I just wanted to ask you that because I could see a lot of people looking at it and saying, well, maybe I'm in a crisis state, maybe not. I think I'll just not do it because this thing is foreign to me anyways. So if you can just contextualize a little bit of that crisis state, I think that'd be helpful.
Right. Well, I think first responders are intuitively, they understand what a crisis is when it comes to mental health. So don't get too technical. It's that if you have suffered yourself as a first responder or a family loved member of a first responder, and you already know you're in deep doo-doo as far as your mental well-being, like you have clinical depression, you take pharmacotherapeutics for that, and you're unstable or unwell in this moment, or if you're suicidal, that's not the space for proactive approach. It's a space to be reactive and be in the pathogenic medical model, which means get the help you need. And there are many self-assessment tools out there that you can take. I think I have one linked, maybe not in that course, but I can add it. But if you just Google, mental health assessment or self-assessment, there'll be lots out there. But if you know that you would rather see a psychologist than listen to Wendy Lund talk about proactive, listen to your gut. You likely know. And so I'm very clear that I'm not a counselor. That's not my training. However, what's important to note is the stuff we do in Reach for Resiliency and in my platform are largely the same principles that a psychologist would use if you are in difficulty with your mental well-being. And that's why I developed it. I'm like, if somebody's depressed or anxious and you look at the treatment that psychologists use, it's mostly mindfulness-based stuff. It's helping people figure out how to be with your thoughts, how they produce emotions, and then how to interrupt them, how to notice them when they show up, and use new tools of your mind and how you speak to yourself and how you produce these emotions, how it can be changed by your ability to pay attention and train the brain in a way that moves you out of those thoughts. So I was like, why don't we teach that to first responders before they get into trouble? Because they're also known in the literature and the evidence to be resiliency enhancing or strength-based approaches to well-being, which is different than saying, here, I'm selling you some curriculum. You do this and you'll forever be resilient. No. Bad days still happen to me. COVID is still a problem for me. I have days and moments where I light up, and I just need to learn how to mitigate and manage those emotional eruptions skillfully, as opposed to letting emotions overtake my control of the moment. And so mindfulness is like, can I notice this stuff and then play with it in a way that moves me back to center, moves me back to peace?
Absolutely. I think that's that's a perfect breakdown of exactly what the purpose of the course is and how you can benefit from it, especially as a first responder in daily life amongst all this crazy stuff that's going on. And you brought up a good point there that I like to kind of go into, which is it's about being aware and bring yourself back from either end, kind of back to where you want to be and where you can be more productive. Uh, and so for people sitting down and taking the course, there's a couple of times in there where you talk about a gentle curiosity and approaching this with a kind, open mind and basically being allowed to let yourself feel that and then explore that. So would you say that, let's say I'm on shift and I look through your list of available activities and there's a breathing exercise in there or there's a thought project in there. Would you say that even if I'm not in that that kind of welcoming, opening mindset to learn more about the course, I can still go on there and there might be something on there that can help me, even when I'm worked up a little bit, get back to where I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pretty clear?
Yep. So the kind, open curiosity is really to stop people. Let me maybe backtrack. When I first started practicing mindfulness, the teacher said, here's what the definition of mindfulness is, which for everybody out there, it's really this paying attention with a particular quality to the present moment, non-judgmentally. And years ago, I was like, oh, I'm not judgmental. And then I'm like, I'm just going to watch my brain for the next week. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so judgy. And I wish the teacher had told me back then, look, your brain, and listen up, first responders, your brain is designed to be judgy. And I don't want to take that away. You've got to make clinical decisions on the spot quickly. You're trained to do that. So we're not talking about stripping away that and just being, oh, laissez-faire and whatever happens, happens. You need to be able to focus your mind as a first responder. But when you're not busy in a pathway or fixing something on the spot for the work that you do, you can cultivate this attention of your brain towards your mind. And initially, you might be facing a mindfulness practice with skepticism, like, really, Wendy, 3 minutes of breathing is going to change COVID and my response to it? Well, no, not if you go in with that attitude. And it's not even that I want to poop on you for having that attitude. Noticing that you have this strong resistance or this belief or this ego that is saying, this isn't going to work, is if you notice it like as a witness, like, oh, look at me laughing at this, or look at me being super critical. That's insight in and of itself, because what you might learn is as you look more back towards the internal environment is like, wow, I'm pretty critical of everything that I don't believe in myself. And when you become narrow-minded, like you should be as a first responder on a call, right? You get into the call and you are focused laser-like on the call. And your focus becomes super narrow. But when you can become open and curious, you start to see things that maybe you weren't noticing about yourself, about the people you work with, about the people you live with. And you might not necessarily like what you see. And so adopting this kind, open curiosity just means don't use the beginning of a mindfulness practice to let your self-critic get a hold of that and go, see, Chris, you can't even meditate for 5 minutes. And so if you notice that you're being critical of me or others, just be like, wow, I'm super critical. And then see what you can do with that over time. And so adopting this open stance cognitively means you might take in more of what I say, you might benefit more, and you might develop the insight and the wisdom that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think I brought up to you before when I saw the words general curiosity. I couldn't remember the last time I was generally curious about something. It's always aggressive interrogatory or pursuing something with fervor, to get it, and
Right.
just kind of going to figure something out or being open to seeing what works is not. I definitely don't do it on shift, and then I tend to carry that trait off of shift.
Mm-hmm.
And, essentially as focused with other things that bringing a little bit of that kindness and gentle curiosity could probably be a good thing. But I think we tend to paint with a broad brush. If it works there, it works here. But having that extra tool in the toolbox of allowing yourself, like you said, to get to that state is nothing but positive. So,
and even I'll just add to that, first responders are so good at being hypervigilant, right? And I know most of you are going to identify with this, is that you can often be the first responder at home when you're not wearing your uniform, right? You're hypervigilant and you can see scenarios playing out with your kids, and you just turn it on all the time, where you have to create transition traditions where you come off the job and take off that uniform, not just physically, but psychologically, so that you can calm the amygdala. if you're always in threat detection and COVID has put an extra layer of that, it means you're lighting up your stress response in the mind and in the body, and that's not going to serve you well.
Absolutely. That's something we've talked about in Spring for Change a few times, was being stuck in that sympathetic drive and trying to get yourself out of it so you can actually, first of all, think more, but let your body rest and not be so worked on both ends, burning both ends of the candle, essentially.
Right.
So